morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. There we go. Okay, do we have my slides as well? Thank you. So I'm delighted. So I wrote a book called The Future Normal, which, of course, I'm super excited to be in the part of a world where you are literally creating the future today. So what I'm going to do is just share 4 big, non-obvious ideas reshaping the future normal for restaurants and hospitality. But look, the first thing I want to start with is I'm often introduced as a futurist. And of course, that is true, right? We're in a world where change is all around us. Political change, social change, economic change, technological change. Perhaps some of you saw this image that went viral earlier this year. This is the Pope wearing a puffer jacket, only it's not, right? Because this image was created by someone sitting behind their desk using AI, right? But there were lots of people that looked at this and said, I just assumed that this was real. So change is all around us. But I want to start and anchor this presentation by taking a slightly different tack, which, yes, we're going to talk about the future, but there's this great quote from Jeff Bezos, and he was being interviewed on a stage like here at an event, and this journalist said, Jeff, what's the future of retail? What are you most excited about? What does retail 2030 look like? And he said, it's interesting, I'm always asked this question, what's changing, what's the future? He said, no one ever asks me the alternative question, which is what's not going to change. And he said, for me and my leadership team, if you're a leader running an organization, we're much more focused on that question, what is not going to change in the next decade. Because he said, look, these are the things that we can invest our time and energy in, because we know at Amazon that in 10 years' time, whatever new technology, AI, Internet of Things, big data, drones, whatever it is, he said, we know that in 10 years' time, no customer is going to come to us and go, Jeff, love what you're doing at Amazon. Just wish you had slower delivery times and higher prices. And he said, that's never, ever going to happen. So these are the things, what's not going to change, that we can invest our time and energy in. And he said, the great thing about them is they're really easy to find. Right? These things, you don't need to do loads of market research. He said, you know them, right? Because these things are stable. They're fundamental. They're core basic human needs. And we've seen this over the last few years. When the world shut down, right? Everything we knew went to dust virtually overnight in the pandemic. What happens? We rush on Zoom, right? Because we have this basic human need for connection, right? And of course, as we start to open up, you get these crazy pictures like this, right? These basic human needs, the search for status, the desire for security, the desire to have a good life, the desire for reliable, trustworthy information. These are things, right, that you can build your business around for the next 10 years amid all of this change. But look, we've just seen the picture of a start of a presentation. I opened a picture that would not have been possible 2 years ago to create, right? The Pope in the puffer jacket created by AI. So how do we marry these two things? Right, what is changing and what's not changing, which I said is the most important thing. And the secret, right, I'm going to share with you 4 big ideas about what's coming in the future normal. But what I also want you guys to leave this session with is this skill of being able to anticipate the future yourself. And the way to do this, I believe, is to look at the innovations which are coming into the marketplace. Right? Look at innovations in other sectors. Look at innovations in other parts of the world. Look at innovations aimed at different demographics to the ones you serve today, because they will give you signals about what is coming next. And the reason why they do this is because of what we call the expectation economy. Right? We live in an expectation economy. And what I mean by this, right, is that customers' expectations, your customers' expectations, are set by their experiences. Right? They're set by the experiences of the organizations, the brands, the businesses that are raising the bar around these basic human needs, whether it's convenience, whether it's trust, whether it's information, whether it's community, whatever it is. Right? And of course, we live in an information transparent world. And so even if you have not directly experienced the best, you're aware that it exists. Right? If every time you get in a car, you're aware that Tesla exists, right? Even if you're not getting into a Tesla. Every time you go on the internet now, right, you're aware that there is the intelligence of OpenAI, right, that is helping you do whatever it is you want to do faster, easier, cheaper, better. So looking at other businesses and thinking about how the businesses which are raising customer expectations around the basic human needs and wants that you deal with, this is the secret to spotting what is next. Right, so what I would urge you, and I always say this, I put in futurist into DALL-E, right, OpenAI's image generator, and this is what comes back. This is what we have in our minds, right, when we think of the word futurist. You think of a white man wearing glasses and a roll neck. I mean, it's like a cliche. But if you think about anticipating the future, you know, if you think about delegating this to futurists, what's your role in this? What I would urge you to do is you need to be participating in this. You need to have a view on what is coming next. And to do this, you don't need to be a futurist. You don't need to have these mythical skills. You don't need to wear fancy glasses. You can just look at what is happening today. Be a nowist. Right? And we know that this works. We've seen this again and again and again. The other thing, I'm going to show you some innovations, right, which today are small, today are not normal. But we've seen this again and again and again. The niche and the remarkable quickly becomes normal and expected if it speaks to a basic human need. I love this story. This is from 1968 in the New York Times. They had a whole page article about this bizarre activity called jogging. Right? This was newsworthy in 1968. We had to write an article like, look at this, look, this is what these people do. They just run around. They're not even going anywhere. Right? Fast forward a generation, and we don't even think this is remarkable at all, right? Because it speaks to this basic human need and want for health and well-being, right? And you think this again and again. Yoga, meditation, mindfulness, right? Practices which start niche can become normal very quickly if they speak to a basic human need and want. So he said that this is what I've spent the last 3 years doing, is speaking to the entrepreneurs, the creators on the frontiers who are creating businesses that we believe may become more widespread. They have the seed of an idea that could become normal. Right? And this is what me and my co-author Rohit, we launched this book earlier this year at South by Southwest. I have a few copies with me here today, so if this presentation really lights a fire in you, then please come and see. I have a few signed copies to give away. Unfortunately, not enough for everyone, but first come, first served. So this is my attempt to hopefully get mobbed as I leave the stage and feel fantastic. But what I've done today is just to pick 4 chapters, which I'm really excited to share with you with some big ideas for you to use in the months and years ahead. So this first trend I want to talk about, this is one of my favorite chapters from the book because it speaks to just such a fundamental shift in how we see the world and how you as a business person will speak to and think about your positioning. Because look, we've grown up, think about it, for the last 40, 50 years, the positioning has been natural is best, artisan is best, right? Natural is a status symbol. This is Whole Foods. This is what we know luxury looks like. Authenticity. But what's happening is we're about to enter into this new era of synthetic biology where we can create fake, lab-grown alternatives to products which are cleaner, more sustainable, more ethical, and arguably better than their natural alternatives. So think about foie gras, right? Maybe you think it's delicious. I'm not going to ask for a show of hands, but even if you love foie gras, perhaps there's some idea in the back of your mind that you think this is not that amazing, right? The geese have to suffer a lot for me to eat my rich, indulgent, delicious foie gras. And now there's this French startup called Gourmet. Of course, it's a French startup, right? They've raised 50 million euros to create lab-grown foie gras. So now you can eat this foie gras, and you see no geese were harmed in the making of this foie gras. Right, so this will change your relationship to this product completely. Right. And actually, well, I was researching this presentation just 10 days ago, I think, 2 weeks ago. A cultivated meat company called Good Meat, they actually got this ruling from some Sharia scholars saying that cultivated meat could be halal. Again, this is going to open up the market for billions of people to eat this cultivated, lab-grown, fake, in inverted commas, meat, which is cellularly identical to the real animal-derived meat. Lower carbon footprint, no animal suffering, no antibiotics, right? Think about this. This is arguably a better product. And look, I just included this example to say it's not just food, right? This is a fundamental shift across multiple industries. We see it lab-grown leather, right? Lab-grown diamonds. But what I think this does is really interesting. If you're a marketer, if you're thinking about your positioning, right? As I say, the last generation has all been about natural is luxury. Natural is the status symbol, locally grown. Whereas actually, of course, we may be about to have a total twist in this story. Right? And actually, natural will be seen as dirty and polluting, and fake will be seen as luxury and clean. Second trend I want to share with you, if you think about the core fundamental human needs and wants, the well-being and health and well-being, most fundamental from anything. And we saw during the pandemic, of course, this awakening in our understanding of what the buildings we are inside can do to our health. What is the airflow? What is the air quality like? This is something we never really thought about before. And we've seen this continue. This is now so mainstream. You can now buy an air quality monitor from IKEA for $20, 160 dirham. Right? This is not expensive. This is just in our daily lives, this awareness. And of course, what we're seeing is innovation after innovation tackling the architectural impact on our health and well-being. So earlier this year, a few months ago, you might have read about reflective paint, right? In the effort to reduce the need for air conditioning, right? Increasingly, buildings and cities, localities are painting either the roofs or the pavements and roads with reflective paint. But the big issue with this is you can have any color you want as long as it's white. This has been the story up to now. And then earlier this year, some Stanford University scientists, this is still in the research phase, but they created this reflective paint, reflects up to 80% of the UV lights, but you can have it in 10 colors now, right? So this will become more normal to reduce the air conditioning need. And we see again and again, right, leading edge organizations thinking about not just how to protect people's health, how to reduce their heating, but also how to improve people's performance. So again, if you look to Silicon Valley, right, the offices of Adobe, the new Adobe office, no expense spared, trying to get people to come back to the office, some of the most highly paid workers in the world. What are they doing now? They're now investing in lighting. So there's different zones in the office, and the lighting, the hue of the lighting is designed to affect your performance. So it's one color in the dining room area to promote collaboration. It's to promote focus in the working areas. Right, so I'm not saying rush out and change the lighting in your restaurant, but what I'm saying is to use these three examples to help you ask the bigger question, which is in the future, what expectations will your diners, will your guests have of how the physical environment impacts their experience, right? Boosts their health and well-being. Because this is something that will start to become a question that people ask of you, or you need to ask with your team. Okay, third big idea. Again, coming out of a pandemic, going into the pandemic, so we saw so many people all around the world questioning the physical environments in which they lived. Right? And we saw, whole loads of streets all over Europe, the USA, etc., repositioned away from cars and towards people. Right? So we saw the growth of outdoor dining. And actually, the 15-minute city has become this kind of controversial flashpoint around government intervention, certainly in Europe. But I think there's a bigger question which people are not really thinking about, which I just want to share with you briefly just to seed this idea in your head. Because one of the most interesting developments around the city and how we move around the city in the last few years has, of course, been the rise of micromobility. Right? Electric-powered scooters, electric-powered bikes, helping people go further faster. Because a lot of the conversation around the 15-minute city, and I know this is happening in the line, right, is about how you redesign the physical infrastructure of the city, right? What services are available in your immediate neighborhood, right? Is there a doctor? Is there a school? Is there, the certain amenities that you want in your neighborhood? But I think the bigger question that people are not asking is what happens when those residents of those cities can literally, as I say, go further faster, right, via electric micromobility solutions. So yeah, we've seen scooters, but what is coming down the track? There's also a whole new class of vehicles, the quadricycles. So this is essentially like an electrified golf buggy. It's solar paneled. You can't see on the roof is a solar panel, so it needs charging hardly ever for short journeys. It's a Dutch startup. They cost less than 5,000 euros, and there's no doors are optional. Okay, it's basically a golf buggy. You don't even need a driving license to drive this, right? So it opens up the market. So there's this whole new class of mobility options for people to move around the city. And your 15-minute city looks very different if you're driving one of these versus if you're walking or going on traditional public transport. And if we think a little bit further ahead, right, you think about flying cars, right? I don't know what as a futurist we're going to do when flying cars come, because this is what we've always talked about as being in the future, right? Flying cars of the future. What are we going to put in our pictures of the future when we actually have flying cars? Okay, we'll have to think of something else. But there's been so much activity in this space in the last 2-3 years around all these companies, and we've seen His Highness Sheikh Mohammed announce earlier this year that Dubai is going to be one of the world leaders in this, right? Really leaning into this as a sector. And so the question I would ask you guys, the reason why I'm sharing these examples with you, is we see that these signals in other industries are coming. But what does this do? If you're a restaurant operator, right, what does local look like? Right, what's your local market in a world where urban citizens are much more mobile potentially than before? How does this change the balance between neighborhood and destination restaurants? What does your footprint planning look like in terms of covering a city? So the final trend I want to share with you here today, final chapter from a book. This is the chapter we use to close out the book. And it's really, again, us asking the question, what next for sustainability? Right? We're always interested in this question, where are things heading next? And of course, you've got all these businesses rolling out their net zero commitments. Right? And so we're thinking, what are the pioneers? Right? What are the people on the frontiers of sustainability doing? Where are they taking this conversation? Where and how are they setting expectations? And you get products like this. This is a product, it's an ex-Adidas executive. He left, he set up his company called the Unless Collective, and they launched earlier this year the world's first 100% circular sneaker. Right? Sneakers are a total environmental disaster, right? Because there's multiple materials, they're glued and stitched together to be durable. We create 26 billion shoes a year, and less than 1 billion of them are currently recycled, right? It's an environmental disaster. These shoes are the world's first 100% natural-based sneakers. Everything from the glue, the dye, the materials, the stitching, everything. And they've got this amazing GIF on their website. You could grind these shoes up. This is their big marketing message. You could grind these shoes up and you could scatter them on your plants in your garden, and the nutrients in all the materials is 100% plant-based. They would go back to the earth in a circular process. Right? And again, you see this slightly more seriously, bringing it back to your industry, right? Think about some of the biggest companies in the world. PepsiCo committing to go their entire agricultural footprint shift towards regenerative farming by 2030. Right? And thinking about other businesses leading the way. Many of you might have read about Patagonia last year. The founder of Patagonia, instead of selling the business, instead of doing an IPO, he actually gave his shares to a perpetual purpose trust, right? A non-profit organization that is committed, that is legally locked in to spending the $100 million a year of profit that Patagonia generates towards environmental causes, regenerative causes, looking to protect the planet. I'm not saying you've got to rush off and turn your shareholders into, turn nature into your shareholders, but this is where your competition is headed. Think back to that slide at the start about expectations, right? And while I was preparing this presentation, again, you guys know this, right? This is why it's so exciting for me to come here, because this is the area in the world where, of course, the future normal is being created today. Right? Red Sea Global, the Saudi tourism project, the world's largest regenerative tourism project in the world, happening right now. So the question I would ask you guys is think about where in your business can you think about how you can not just do less bad, but start to do actively more good, right? And leave the world, whether that's economically, whether that's socially, or whether that's environmentally. Think about how you could do more good. So look, just to wrap up, it's been a whistle-stop tour for you, a few big ideas. I've opened with some very big questions, right? Showing you some pictures from outside of your comfort zone. It's, of course, just the tip of the iceberg. But I hope what I've done is, as well as giving you some actionable ideas that feed into some of the conversations that you're having with your team right now, I hope I've also given you a different way of seeing the world, right? We're all trying to figure out what's coming next, right? You're a business leader. This is what your job is, to figure out what's coming next. I hope I've given you an insight that actually the secret to doing that, you don't need loads of data. You don't need to go and do loads of market research. You can just look at the businesses that are coming into the market, right? As I said, in different sectors, in different parts of the world, perhaps, aimed at different customer demographics to the ones you serve. And think about how those innovations will raise the expectations of your customers around the basic human needs and wants that you serve, the things that won't change in the next 10 years. Because, of course, the only future we can make is the one that we are able to imagine. And this, I believe, is the most powerful tool to help you imagine the future that you can create. So with that, thank you so much for having me, and best of luck. Okay, thank you.